Good evening, everybody. I'm Matt Patrick, Chair of Public Health and Safety, and this is our first meeting. Stephen, it's our first meeting of our new term, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. First thing I'd like to do is approve the minutes of the October 16th meeting. I sent those out today. It was kind of late, but we did send them out. Any comments or anything? All in favor? Approve? Okay, great, that's unanimous. And thought we'd just go around and introduce ourselves, and we have new members, but just welcome our new members and introduce ourselves. So again, I'm Mac Patrick. I'm in District 5. I live on Edgerton Street, and I've been chair for a while, and that's my story. I've been on the RTM for 25 years or so.
Yeah.
Just a small stint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it in.
Yeah.
We got to meet a little bit here.
We were neighbors, and then you moved away. Well, here, go ahead.
Tom Ward, District 3, 30 years with the RTM. So, started when I was 5.
That's great. Hi, I'm Rachel Taylor. I'm District 6, year 3. Pretty novice as compared to these two gentlemen, but I've been on this committee for my first term, which was 2 years. So it'll be my second, and I like this committee. I think, there's important things to consider, and we've now got Great Island coming online, and a vibrant community that, has, as every community does, safety issues that need to be discussed by, involved and invested people, and so I'm happy to be serving along all of you guys, so and welcome to our new friends.
Hi everyone, my name is Violet Aldea. I'm 2 months into RTM, District 6, just joined in November, and I live on Locust Hill. I've got 2 kids at Tokenique, one at Tokenique, one at Darien High School, and I'm going on 6 years resident of Darien, and I love this town. I think it's fabulous, and so I'm happy to be here and to, as I said, do my civic duty and help out any way I can, so happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Welcome. I am Bill Clarkson, District 1. This is my second year on the RTM and second year on Public Health and Safety, so looking forward to another good one.
And you're also our vice chair, so
Yeah.
You're one heartbeat away.
Take it seriously.
Steve Walker, District 3, committee 5 minutes. Literally, I also joined back in November and been in town nearly 26, 27 years. 2 daughters who visit frequently but are now in Manhattan, went through the school system here, and this is my first time doing anything related to town governance, and I'm real excited to get involved.
Oh, that's great.
Good to have you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Jackie Miller. I'm from District 2. I've been doing this, 3 years maybe. I'm the clerk, so I'm taking minutes when I remember to take minutes. And welcome everybody.
That's great.
My name is Liz Bacon. I'm in District 2. I've been on the RTM, it must be going on, I don't know, I was on the first committee view, so it's been 15 years anyway. I've been on education, I've been on public works, I've been on rules, I've been on some other town-related committees. I'm enjoying, this is I think my second year on public health and safety, maybe third, I can't remember. But they all are interesting in their own way, and it's nice to sort of move after a period of time to learn another dimension of what's going on in town government. So happy to be here and work with you guys.
Jim Cameron, District 4, a member of RTM for 27 years. I run TV 79. If you don't watch us, you will get an email from me and be alerted to all the programming we carry. And I'm also, since the beginning of the year, RTM's representative on the Blight Review Board as well.
Here.
Yeah.
I'm Lois Schneider. I've been on the RTM 25 plus years. I was on education for a long time. I've been in town for almost 15 years, which is so frightening. And I didn't grow up here. Or should I say I grew up here? That would make it a lot easier. I've I've been on this committee for a number of years. I'm also on the Rules Committee, and I'm vice chair of the Rules Committee. And my daughter went through all the schools and has well gone on all of that. And I find it really interesting and really good to be on this committee.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. Next topic, I thought we'd talk about Great Island. There are some issues right now that are coming up whereas the first selectman approved allowing dogs to be on the property. They're allowed, you know, they have to be on leash, and, you know, all the rules apply. You pick up after your dog. You know, your dog can't be aggressive towards other dogs, all that stuff. But the biggest issue is in the town ordinance that is over not only Great Island, but every public property. This property here at Town Hall, the schools. The dogs have to be leashed, and you also have to pick up after your dogs. But the thing that's interesting is that we passed that, I don't know, 15 years ago, and there's no fine attached to it.
I don't believe that, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I get it, but
Yeah, I
I'm pretty
mean,
sure we put a fine to it. I just don't know why it's not on the
Yeah.
books.
Well-
Because we moved all the fines to the appendix.
Yeah, but if you look there, it's.
I know, but I'm sure we passed it.
Yeah, so, but that being said, I attended a meeting a couple of weeks ago with our first selectman and our police chief and other people, and we talked about it, and it was given, Monica was on it as well, and she reached out to Wayne Fox, our counsel, and he's come back, just to try to paraphrase what he said, was that originally the thought was that we could lean on the selectmen to just add a fine to it, because there's language, if there's a fine already embedded in the ordinance, you can change it, the selectmen can change it. But the fact that there's one that's not there, Wayne feels that it has to come back to the RTM, not to redo the whole ordinance, but just to attach a fine to it.
Sure.
So I think that's something, I don't know, will
Did you
necessarily.
say what the maximum fine can be?
Well, I think you can make it up, I mean.
No, I thought there was
There's
certain
minimums,
limitations.
there's minimums, the state law is $25, and so you can go above that, but you can't undercut that.
1,000?
You know, what's that?
Make it
Yes,
1,000?
yeah, you can make it 10,000, I'm exaggerating, but I think,
Exactly.
there's probably something that comes in about being reasonable, but I think.
You're implying he's not
Yeah,
reasonable?
no, well, no,
Remember, you gotta get this through the RTM too.
yeah,
There's a few
But-
dog lovers there.
yeah.
Well, it's nothing against it. I have a dog. I have 2 dogs.
Yeah.
And I can't walk them in Woodland Park because there's dogs off leash and
Yeah.
they're aggressive dogs. And the owners, well, not all of them, but some of the owners just don't care.
Yeah, that's true.
So, you know, and it's really, I've got a real problem with this. So
Yeah.
I would like to,
So I have a question.
Work on this.
Related to that. So what about then going the next step and having to set aside money to make signs, to put them up and where
Well,
to put
that's-
them up and?
well, they are
You know.
posted.
Yeah, and they're talking about that. Monica mentioned that there is signage there now, but they want to have more signage. That's another thing, but I'm just kind of letting you know, we can certainly talk about it, that's why we're here tonight, but it's not ready for prime time yet. The Rules Committee has not put it to us to really roll up our sleeves. But what I think will happen is that Wayne Fox and his associates will draft a fine thing in proper language, give it to us with fill in the blanks. And that's when we'll talk about what the numbers should be.
And what about the enforcement of it?
Well, that's another issue.
So I understand we hired a new animal control person.
Right,
correct?
right.
Have you
And-
had a meeting with her?
No, but we certainly can.
I would like to
And-
volunteer,
Yeah.
if I could represent the committee on that. I'd
Yeah,
like to-
yeah. And I don't know how far along, I know she's come from Stanford, she's not brand new, she's, you know, she did the same thing there. So, but that's kind of all I know. She was just talked about a little bit at this meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago. But certainly, we could reach out to her and have her thoughts of you know, enforcement and whatnot. Yeah.
Does the Board of Selectmen have to officially ask us to do this, or is it just?
I
we're ready
think
to-
John is gonna reach out, if he hasn't already, to Seth,
Okay.
to bring it to rules, and then we get assigned on it, and at the same time, I'm sure Wayne will be asked to craft, the language, and I talked to, Frank Kemp, who's actually, his committee, TGS&A, is meeting right now up in room 206, and he's kind of talking about the same thing. They would be more of the ones that would actually be working on the ordinance itself. I think where we come in is offering our guidance, like to the fine, what we think the number should be, and talk about why we think that should be enforceable and that type of thing.
I also should make it clear that I'm not against dogs, because I like dogs. I'm against
Are you sure?
dogs that need to be under control of the owner, which means they need to be leashed.
Yeah.
Can I just, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to suggest too, I don't know how we can do this, but if there's any guidance or research we can do to show that there's a fine amount that behaviorally works to encourage people to abide by that rule, because the
Well, I think-
fine is what it is versus too low or too high. I don't know if like neighboring towns have something we
Yeah,
can look at.
and that was talked about is to use, it's, just copy and paste, but look at other ordinances in other towns. What are their numbers, and talk to various people and get a feel for what, is it working, is it not working? What happens in Waveney, for example, in New Canaan. I'm sure they have the same kind of issues. Yeah, well,
So
go ahead.
when we had done some research earlier on the police commission and talked to them, the police when we were doing another study, one of the things that I learned had to do with something about having an appeals process. In order to have an effective fine, you need an effective appeals process. Is that something that we need to undertake, or is that something that the police will do?
I think
Or the Board of Selectmen?
what John Zagrowski said about that was that they're definitely working on that.
Okay.
He's not sure right now that they need to have that. The thought process has always been, well, one of the reasons that this fine was never put into place was that they could never get somebody to fill that role. It's really a volunteer in the town to adjudicate appeals.
Why couldn't it be us though, as a committee? We're all elected.
Well, how do we handle sidewalks if someone doesn't shovel their sidewalk?
That's a whole,
That's a whole nother issue.
coming up.
Well,
Yeah.
but isn't that the same thing?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a
Yeah.
is there a process for that?
I
Well,
think
there is
it's
for the
usually a
park-
stern warning from the police, I think is the first starting point. And they, there are places in town you can call, like the high school has, we just haven't had snow in a while. But they usually have.
My point is that
Yeah.
there must be an appeal process.
There's a parking's violation appeal process.
Right.
Mhm.
So if it's a ticket for that, it could be the same person
Well,
or process. yeah.
that's what I was
And
coming
also
to.
the fire alarm, the false alarms for the
Yeah,
police.
because you had,
But this is separate, whether that all goes into one category or not is to be
yeah,
determined.
It seems to me that there's some ambiguity as to whether or not we even need to add this to the ordinance. They had to go to town council to get clarity on that. My concern is, are we going to open up every ordinance now that has to be reevaluated? And in the course of that process, this particular thing gets caught up in a tumbleweed of problems and it doesn't get done.
well,
My-
just to be clear, the ordinance itself stands on its own. We're not going back and micromanaging and redoing the
But the
ordinance.
enforcement of
enforcement.
the ordinance
Right,
seems to be hinged to having to have a fine. And I'm just saying, if that is then going to create this reevaluation of all the ordinances that might require a fine, I'm just wondering if that might be the case. And secondly, how is one animal control officer going to in any way, implement this? I think it's naive to think that other citizens are gonna snitch on their neighbors about a dog. I mean, it just feels like this
All
is.
you have to do is park your car in Woodland Park, sit there for 5 minutes, and you'll get 5 to 6 tickets. So it only takes a couple,
Who's ticketing?
If they
that's
did
my
it.
point,
They had
if they did it,
someone.
if they did it.
Who?
The animal
Who does it, the animal
Animal
control
control.
person?
Police can do it, the animal control officer can do it.
Oh, I see, so the
And that's
police
spelled out-
would be part of that.
And that's spelled out in the ordinance if you read it. And I actually, I might as well hand it out, I did print it out, so this, you can see what it is there.
Can I just piggyback on that slightly in the sense of like thinking about process more globally? Like, I understand where you're kind of going with that. Is this open up a can of worms, like where we have to revisit and reevaluate
Yeah.
and systematically make sure we're even-handed across the board with other like ordinances? But my question is more regarding our RTM process, and Lois, maybe as rules chair, you can speak to this. I don't know what precedent says, but why, you made mention, maybe it was just an offhand comment, but like, why would singularly T, S and G, sorry, I'm screwed with botching that.
Yeah,
That-
TGS.
TGS and E, why would they
S&A.
singularly be able to consider and/or pass that ordinance? Like, if we have a role, would we not duly consider that? Would it not need to pass through both of our committees?
Usually, when you're talking about creating an ordinance, creating one, they're at the lead. And I think that's kind of a historical.
So my understanding is that the ordinance, I don't know about this ordinance, but there's a list of fines that's a separate part of the thing. And that's what we would,
Appendix D.
that's what we would be modifying,
Yeah.
I
not,
see.
not the
Yeah.
whole
And
thing,
I was
and not
on
opening
T-
up a whole can of
Right.
worms.
And I was on that committee when we did
When you
that.
pulled them
And the
in.
purpose of having it as an appendix was that it would be easier to change the
Got it.
fees.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the whole point, is the selectmen can just, with a simple vote, change an existing fine.
Well, I
But-
think if they change anything, they have to go to the RTM.
No, that's the whole point, is they don't have to go to the RTM. But what Wayne Fox is saying, because there is not an existing fine in place now, that we have to initiate it. And a year from now, 5 years from now, if the selectmen want to change it, raise it, lower it, then they can do that. And it's just adjusting this notation in Appendix D.
Can I
Yeah, and-
answer the other part of your question? So TGS&A is our committee that is the legal process, or
Sure.
the legal side of things. And frequently, if any of the work that any of the committees are doing involve changes to town ordinances or other kind of documents, TGS&A is involved. And
Town
usually,
charter.
the charter, any of that.
Sure.
But if it's something that has to do with some function, whether it's public works or education or things like that, that has to do with other committees, then it's usually done jointly with TGS&A and our committee or something like that. And I just wanted to clarify.
No, totally
the roles.
understand, and I certainly understand them being the lead and having the final say, but I guess what I'm suggesting is, if it's not precedent, to also have us render a say through a
Absolutely,
vote.
we will.
Yeah, I'm
We
just
will.
suggesting that it should pass through both officially.
It will absolutely do
Oh,
that.
that's-
But again,
And
this is a
committees-
narrow thing, we're only, and again, I'm just, we're getting really deep into this tonight, which is fine, but all we're doing is talking about putting a fine in place. We're not talking about, doing something, we have to create an additional ordinance or something, because
No, agreed.
everybody's, that is looking into this is comfortable with what we already have.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm just suggesting is like insofar as that's probably, I'm just gonna like hazard a guess, that will probably be unpopular with broad swaths of the community, perhaps. Like, it's probably better as a matter of process that more of us as elected officials consider that,
I'm not sure what
carefully.
I'm not sure what you mean when you say what, the people wouldn't be happy with it, mean that there's a fine now where there wasn't before?
Right, I think,
Yeah.
right,
There
when the
always
news
should have
gets
been.
out.
There
it
always
has
should have
to-
been a fine.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a
document.
No,
Yeah.
because also, like Cherry Lawn has a period, certain hours that dogs can be in Cherry Lawn off
Mhm.
leash.
Yeah.
Right,
So there's no problem doing that. So you
Yeah.
can do that, as long as there's places where they can take them off leash.
And technically, there is a blanket fine for the whole town of $25. I mean, that's
Well, there's
written at
also
the top of the,
There's also a nuisance, dog
Right.
nuisance, or an animal nuisance
right,
fine.
This
But
is-
obviously,
this is
Wayne
just-
thinks it has
yeah.
to be clarified.
so.
I really think that 90% of the people would follow it.
I agree.
You know, it's just, it's not enforced and people just kind of just.
And what the committee that I met with talked about is they want to be very careful, because you don't want to have these appeals go to state court, for example.
Right.
If it goes to Stanford, because it just goes away.
So, and
They
if,
dismiss everything.
If we're gonna do something that has to be voted by the RTM, then the two lead committees would be TGS and Public Health and Safety. I'm not sure which one would be primary and which one secondary. Then the whole RTM votes on it.
Right.
So it's not something that we do on the side and therefore it becomes the rule. Anything like that, the whole RTM votes on.
Yeah, no, completely understand. I guess I'm just trying to help the process to be as clear and transparent as it can be. I think the more discussion around it, the more deliberative you can be in the open with multiple occasions for people to A, pay attention, B, become aware, or C, be able to voice whatever they want to voice, either directly to us, through us, or in front of the full RTM. I think that that's beneficial entirely as a process, but for the outcome.
No smoke-filled rooms?
Yeah,
Not for me.
yeah, Jim.
I quit.
Take this with a grain of salt, but I just asked artificial intelligence. What is the fine for having a dog off leash in Darien, Connecticut? And it came back and said it's a $49 fine as noted in the town's parks and recreation rules. So,
Yeah, but that's partially true because the Parks and Recs Commission sets the separate rules for all
the
the
parks.
parks. This is,
but Great Island is not a park.
so,
Correct.
what's that? Right,
But Woodland is a park,
what's that? Yeah, yeah.
so that means we could enforce it.
Perhaps we should, when
When
we
you say
get
we,
there,
it's the
we
park,
should
the
match
parks,
Parks and
it's
Recs.
under
Well,
in other words,
police.
it's the police do it, but technically the RTM would get involved in that, so.
But I can still, if I'm just hearing what you're saying, it sounds from this document that there should have been
Yes.
a fine listed in this table.
Should have been a
but
fine,
There
yeah.
isn't, so that's getting fixed.
Do you see the original date?
Yeah, from
September 27th?
2011.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there should have been a fine at that
So
time.
it should be fixed, so we're gonna do that eventually. And just a thought that maybe it should match whatever the Parks and Rec has in place
Well,
as
they-
well, just so that we're not making it confusing for people.
Yeah, I think, I'm guessing whatever,
That's a good point.
we're probably gonna be talking about having it higher than what Jim just mentioned.
$49.
If it is in fact $49, that was crafted 15 years ago. My guess is they're gonna wanna have it higher.
We should let them know too. if we
Plus
do
those
something
fines-
Well,
higher.
they
Yeah,
do
sure.
know.
They do
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
general fund.
Lori,
It's not Park and Rec.
Um, Bora, who's chair of the
Good point to cross
Parks and
over.
Recs Commission, was on that call, so.
Okay, good talk.
Okay.
Oh, we solved that one.
Yeah.
Next.
Okay. The next thing is, it's, again, very high level, but coming up in February, there are gonna be a series of meetings with presentations to the selectmen of all the things I noted here, fire, police, human services, and we should just definitely be aware of that. I'll try to get out an actual template of when that is, but I think we should all be aware of that. It'd be nice to have people follow it.
Are there live meetings that we can attend?
You can attend it, they're either Zoom or they're in person. Usually what,
TV 79, live and on
Always.
replay.
Always pushing 72.
Oh, well.
That's right.
Build the audience.
Do we get a discount on merch for being here? I need a hat and a shirt.
BYO merch.
So, just off the top of my head, I'm not sure of anything that's big coming up with human services or the health department, but I know with fire department, they're still talking about, big purchases. They all go under capital items, but there's fire trucks that need to be replaced.
I thought we just bought one.
What's that?
Didn't we just buy one?
We
Yeah,
did.
they could-
Well, the one that, the most
Yeah.
recent one got pushed back,
But it
but
takes
there is,
3 years to build them.
yeah, 4 years
Yeah.
now, but
So-
there is a whole, that's what the thing is, there's a whole schedule that they've put in place for the next, 10 years.
Yeah.
It's just shocking when it comes up,
We get a copy of that schedule again. I know we've gotten it.
of,
When the replacement schedule, just so we all have.
yeah, I mean, it's probably baked into the capital item of the budget, but I'll pull it out.
Okay.
You bring this up, but this, you brought it up the last time too. Is there a concern that we don't want to fund fire trucks?
I wouldn't say we don't want to fund them, but I think the selectmen are very careful with the purse, and they're concerned about, these things are expensive.
$1 million each.
And we want to make sure that it definitely is needed. But you hear some of the things that are happening, a truck is maybe, 20, 25 years old, doesn't have current safety equipment on it. may not have airbags on it.
No, I know,
Yeah,
we've
these
had them
are
come
things-
in, and I'm just
Yeah.
shocked that there's a concern over fire trucks.
I don't know that there's a concern, I think it's a timing issue, and I think it's a clarity issue, if it's getting incorporated now into the budget and for the timing, that's what's important. I don't know that they're saying we don't want to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, I
think they're
can't,
also trying to coordinate all the different fire departments, which seem to operate independently of each other. So I think the town, if it's gonna have to pick up the tab for these things, wants to know, Norotan Heights Department, Norotan Department, downtown, what's your equipment, what's your game plan? There is, I discovered, a fire commission.
Yes.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and I actually interviewed some of the members for TV 79. They're, mostly chiefs of the various departments, but they don't meet publicly. I mean, they meet among themselves. It's not on the town website. You won't see them
So,
posting meetings. So I think that the Board of Selectmen is more concerned about more coordination between the departments.
I think it's helpful for, at least for me, the last time we considered the last purchase and we had to vote, et cetera, like, it was very helpful to me to have some of those firehouse representatives here live where we can ask them the questions that we had, because
Yeah.
I'd never contemplated, what goes into buying a fire truck, and I've been, honestly, it's really nerdy, but thinking about it ever since, and I've talked to a lot of, firemen that I happen to run into that might be a plumber, for example, during their day job, and you start talking, and as an example, what are you looking for when you're purchasing these expensive pieces of equipment that people's lives literally rely on? One of the things that I was talking with recently with one of these firemen is in a neighboring town, they are in need of new trucks, in part because they're breaking down and it's time, but also because they are outdated, and not just the airbags, they're not equipped with this particular foam composite that gets mixed with the water on the truck that can put out an electrical cell fire, let's say in a Tesla.
Yeah, that's a big
right?
issue.
So those are the
Yeah.
things that we need to hear from those experts to contemplate, because it is a huge expense and it is necessary, but we also want to pick the right thing that is going to fight the fires in the manner in which they need to be fought, right? Water's not going to work on a Tesla. So
Yeah.
having that foam capability, which I don't know if Darien does or doesn't, but it was alarming to me to hear that a neighboring literal city has that need. What are our needs?
well, to Jim's point, we have 3 separate departments, but they are separate physical buildings, but they coordinate usage. So when the Norotan Heights Department is talking about a particular, tanker truck that they want to get, everyone's going to share with that.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And,
This came up in the context of that bridge over 95 burning down, by the way. They had to similarly coordinate because it was the nearest firehouse didn't have that proper capability.
Well, that's
So-
another
That
thing.
firehouse was 100 yards away.
Right, so maybe I have the story wrong. It was something along the lines, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was they all had to coordinate quickly because only some of them had the correct responsive equipment, so that's something.
I'd also like to say that what we're talking about here is the budget, which is, this is what's coming up. Then there's there's a separate resolution that comes to us when it's time to actually make the purchase.
Right.
But the point of being involved now is to know what's coming. And also, if we have concerns or things like that, the sooner we would voice them, the better it is for everybody in the process.
I thought there was also an issue of redundancy between the 3 companies, one has high ladders, one has oil slick equipment,
Right.
one so everything isn't duplicated.
Yeah, no,
So they need to coordinate.
yeah, they're not done in silos. I mean, when they talk about this equipment, everyone agrees that all
Okay.
3 departments say, yes, this is a need. Yes, this particular firehouse is big enough, it'll hold this thing, but it will go out for the whole town.
yeah, one of the firehouses specializes on the highway, right?
Yeah,
I don't remember which one, whether it was the Heights or whether,
in hindsight, our town should never have put any exits in.
Just drive on by.
Yeah.
Maybe still would have had the merit.
Is there a time frame for these kind of expenditures with the overall budget that we need to start looking at? What are we
schedule.
talking about, when we should be meeting and getting better understanding of the plan of equipment that's
Well, I
needed,
think right now,
expenditures.
what the selectmen, it was late in the year, this past year, but the selectmen kind of tabled
Yeah.
this recent purchase. And they haven't come to us and saying, okay, yeah, we've approved it, now it's our turn. I mean, it hasn't gone to the finance committee.
So you said they tabled the purchase?
Yeah, they wanted more information from the fire department, and you know, exactly, I guess they wanted a sharper pencil to the numbers.
So,
Which
I
house,
feel like this year, just having sat through the presentation in December, when they went through the whole budget for the town, and every department is being asked to scrub their numbers, I just feel like, you know, when it does come to us, hopefully by then we'll have more information and content about when this really needs to be replaced, or if it needs to be happening now, that's fine, we have to make room for it, but I feel like the town has a lot of expenditures coming up, and they're asking each department to cut their budgets. And so it's a matter of like, what can really be postponed and what has to happen now? If it has to happen now, then we have
Yeah.
to make room for it, but I think we need more information
Well, I
to
think
be able to make
everyone's
decisions.
much more sensitive to fire equipment right now
Yeah.
after what's happening in California. You know, and I think John made some comments in his last, last newsletter about that. You know, fingers crossed that we never have that kind of a situation here, we just don't seem to have the climate, but we certainly could have, you know, a dry period where there could be more fires.
So the point of the, what Mac was talking about is the budget reviews that are gonna happen over the next week or so. And that either you can attend or you can watch it on TV 79 or whatever. That's all the detailed information.
That's where you go.
And that's where we should pay attention so that we know what's coming up. Because by the time it comes to us, because that stuff's pretty well baked in. So if we have questions, concerns, or whatever, that's the process of knowing what's happening.
They won't have what you mentioned, which you said you had seen at some point, which is maybe a bigger plan for the fire
There
department.
is the
of
capital,
There's a schedule.
I don't know whether that's in that
Each-
plan or
Coming up.
separate, but.
Each department in the whole town puts out, you know,
Put it
their
online.
5 years, 10 years,
Okay.
what they think they're gonna need. A lot of it's just a wish list, but when, with the fire department, these equipment purchases they're gonna be making. Maybe in 2 years, they need to replace all their oxygen tanks or something. I'm just making that up, but I mean, they've got a schedule of things that they need.
And it has the lifespan of like something like a vehicle, like yes, it can reach up to 30 years, but we're at like 22 and it takes 3 years to build it, so we should start considering it now. And so that was a question I had back when as well, and there's a schedule that, you know, sort of lays that out so we can get ahead of it, because the production time is so lengthy.
So Violet, as a newer member of the RTM, the way the budget process works is the town administrator, who used to be our finance director, Jen Chernesky, will make a presentation of her budget proposal to the Board of Selectmen in broad brushstrokes. And then out comes what's called the budget book. And literally I think there's still some hard copy versions of this around, but it's literally like this. It's available online on the town website as well too. And then the Board of Selectmen, over the course of several evenings, goes through that page by page, department by department, line by line, and talks about what it was in the past, what the ask is this time, what the justification is, and then they start, you know, they get into the minutia of all this. So there's a lot of TV 79 watching coming up, because you don't want to be sitting in the room watching this. It's like
Yeah.
watching paint dry. But you can watch it and follow the timestamps and go to the police budget, or the fire department budget, or emergency services. You know, the ones that we're supposed to be kind of keeping an eye on.
Yeah.
But it's a long, involved process before it ever comes to us. Now, we also have Jack Davis as the chairman of the Finance and Budget Committee, who is all over this like a dog over a, you know, dead duck. You know, seriously, he's watching this thing in minute detail and is looking out for our interests. So by the time it finally comes to the RTM, it's massaged, it's been cut, it's been reapportioned, et cetera, So there's not a lot for us to do. I mean, nothing that we aren't aware of, at least, because of that process. But the time, I mean, before it ever gets to the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen has to approve it and send it to the Board of Finance. And then the Board of Finance takes a pass at it as well, too. So there are chances for public comment, public discussion on all of those venues as well, too.
And that's
Thank
where we
you
are
for
right
that.
now.
Yeah.
I've been following the board events, so I've been kind of over there, but I will follow these now. And I did talk to Jack Davies for quite a while
Good.
at one of the meetings, but thank you for that. That's
Sure.
Well, the one thing to talk about Jack, if he was here, he'd talk for an hour about it, but the nice thing is that their committee also looks at the past, and not every penny of this town that is put in the budget gets spent. So there's these little pockets that grow, and all of a sudden there's $500,000 here and
Yeah, you
a
told me about
$250,000
that, yeah.
here in these little buckets. So there are things that when extra expenses come up, they often find money.
A sidebar here, Lois, though. Are we working on if the budget doesn't pass, what happens?
That's, yes,
'Cause that-
supposedly. I haven't heard any news,
Hopefully
but
that gets done soon, because if
Yeah.
this budget
I will
doesn't pass,
bring it
we
up
don't
again at
know
the
what
next rules
happens.
meeting, because it's been, it needs to be in place by May.
Right, so
You want to
just a
explain
little
what you're talking
history
about?
is if the RTM votes it down. Originally, for years, people thought, well, if it gets voted down, you just use the last year's budget,
Budget.
and it would just continue on. But in fact, that's not the case. So we actually don't know what will happen if the RTM turns it down at this point, like this year. So I think the committee, the Rules Committee, probably should come up with something to
Well,
bring
it
to
is,
the floor.
it was a sign, but it hasn't been focused on, but it needs to be.
Well,
So,
this year might be the year.
well, last year was
Yeah,
almost.
what does
the
that
year.
do
It was almost the year last year, that's right.
And what would
One
that
year-
do to the AAA bond rating? I mean, there's all kinds of questions that would come up.
Well, actually, no, if you revert to your original prior year,
There is no, it's not defined.
but if it was defined, your AAA
Yeah,
percent would be
If it
fine.
was defined, but it is not
Right.
defined, and that's
Your-
why we.
Your
need to look
AAA
at it.
rating is more at risk if you increase the budget
Yeah.
significantly.
And this came, just to clarify, it came out in relationship to the Board of Ed budget, because that budget is one large sum of money that the RTM has no
Control.
access or control over, and that's the money that goes to the board. For town things, we could change a line item, so it's a different process. But we still need
Well, yeah,
we
we
need
still-
to do that.
Yeah, we need to know.
I mean, because it's not, we don't vote it, well, anyway, there are things we can do, but we can't do that in the Board of Ed budget.
Well, that's another question. Can you vote just for the operating versus Board of
Capital.
Ed? Or can you turn down the Board of Ed and still have an operating?
That's right.
So-
Still have town operating budget.
Right,
Yeah.
we don't know that, though.
Well, that we can do. I mean, that's separate, but it still is what happens if, and you, what you're saying.
We'll wait for your report.
What you're saying is there's a whole long list, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, like, and as soon as you answer the first question, what's the second and third answers?
I just, since last year was pretty rough, I would suggest that we get that squared out.
You've been talking to a friend of mine?
Well, let's move on to announcements. One I wanted to talk about, I want to maybe have Jim interject, but Jim did a very nice interview with our police chief. And if you want to talk about that for a second, then I'll dovetail into.
Well, Chief Marin has been in the job for, I don't know, 4 or 6 months now, I guess it was.
Mhm.
And I gave him enough time to get, he's been on the department for decades. His father was a captain in the police department as well, too. But part of this, Inside Town Hall series I do of interviews with elected and appointed officials and the department heads, et cetera. So I did an interview with him, and I'll send a copy of it through Mac. You can forward it to all of you as well, too. It was about 35, 40 minutes long. But we covered everything, we covered all kinds of stuff, from traffic enforcement to kids on skateboards.
Lots of leading questions.
Well,
I'm kidding.
Trying to be as objective as I can, but, you know, having opinions on a few of these things as well, too. I'm there to ask questions on behalf of my viewers, you know. So
No, it's
he
well
was
done.
very forthcoming, and I think I actually suggested to our chairman that we invite him to come and have a little tete-a-tete with us, to answer the kind of questions that we've been talking about here, about why aren't the sidewalk clearings ticket being written, or who's gonna pay for this, who's gonna enforce this? Because he's very candid, and I think he'd be a worthy guest. Similarly, I think we should, think about getting in Mark McEwen, who's the Director of Emergency Services, and Mindy Chambrelli, the new Health Department Director as well, too. I think the more we listen to them, especially as the budget is being baked, the more we can be advocates for them, as we were for David Knopf when he was the Health Director. He was asking for more help in that health department because he knew that there would be all these new inspections that would have to be done. I think it took an extra year to get it approved in the budget process, but we're not here to tell them how to run their departments, but we're here to ask questions and, be their advocate if there are
What do you need?
challenges, like what do you need that you're not gonna be able to get this year? What has the finance department or the Board of Finance kind of warned you? Don't ask for this because you're not gonna get it this year. Well, how badly do you need it? And, can we do something to advocate on your behalf as well too? So I'll leave it to our esteemed chairman to, set up those kind of.
Well, one thing I thought of in relation to the police meeting would be to maybe invite ourselves to a police commission meeting, because then you have more people there. I mean, you've got different officers there, you'd have the police commission, and I think they would welcome us. So try to pick a time where they're comfortable, that they don't have a lot of other things on the plate, so we could meet with them.
Great suggestion.
So,
You let us know, we'll be there.
okay.
Although I will say, I think they're during the day in the mornings.
Well, we could
Maybe I
ask,
should promise
Maybe
everyone
4
will be
o'clock
there.
in the afternoon.
we could ask for a late afternoon one.
There
Well,
is
that's
one.
good to know.
They do it for.
And I think, rather than making it part of an official police commission meeting,
Yeah.
we could meet with them after the meeting is over with,
Mhm.
because they got through a bunch of different stuff.
Well, that's why I say try to make sure when we do this, it's not something where they've got a lot on their plate at that time. So like, it'd be more for us.
Very good.
So. But that was the only announcement I had. Anything else?
Are we gonna talk about the scope document?
We could, sure. I'm sorry, I didn't have it on here. but-
What is it?
So, between F&B, the Finance and Budget Committee, and, well, really Jack and.
Because I think it's been sent out to everybody.
Yeah, everybody has it. It was sent out by Krista. It's called the scope document.
Yeah.
And what was done by Jack, and mostly Jack, and Frank, and anyway. The idea is that there are a lot of committees and committees around town, and that we all don't know about a lot of them, and they have things. So what was done was find a list of all the committees, and this has taken like 2 years, and organize them by what committee would be associated to it from the RTM, and then give that to, and we all got it, and it's a document. But there's one page that's the public health and safety, and it lists a whole bunch of committees that we should be interested in knowing about it, whether they're important enough to follow directly or participate. Do you want me to read some of them, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, anyway, so the idea is, and this is what Public Works and a number of other RTM committees are taking these lists and assigning somebody to be the following person to follow this. Doesn't mean you have to go to lots of meetings, doesn't mean, you're not gonna go and tell them what to do, it's just do it. And what's happening in like the Board of Selectmen and I think the Board of Finance too, but a lot of, in their meetings, they have committee report. They have people say, okay, you're on this committee, and 2 or 3 people will say, okay, this is what's going on my committees, only if there's something of value and interest. And I'll just quickly run through, a lot of this stuff is stuff we know. The Human Services Commission, Commission on Aging, Fire Commission, Police Commission, Advisory Board of Health, Fire Marshal, Fire Departments, Police, Post 53, the different fire departments, the depot, ARPA grants, and these are the things that have been assigned to our committee. And it's up to us to decide how much of this we want to do or not do, and who individually wants to do each one. I don't know if you want to talk about that at the next meeting, or, but the thought is that we each take a couple, or that's sort of on the table, I'll put it on the table, that we each take a couple, are assigned to a couple of these, and those are the ones that we follow, and report if something's going on there. We don't want to, as an opening for every time we have a session, doesn't mean that we're going to go through all of these in
We'd
every
be here
meeting.
for hours.
Yeah, no, it's not that, and
Yeah.
never. But it's just that if we want to know what's going on, then some of these things are going on. Like, is the depot have some issues? I mean, I don't know. But if there are health and safety issues that are involved with that. So that's the idea. It's being done in a lot of the RTM committees. It's being done in the Board of Selectmen. I don't know about the Board of Finance, but I think Education's doing some stuff too. So that's just a way that the town is, I guess John has been instrumental, well, anyway, that the town is trying to coordinate and get people to really know what's going on in different places, so there aren't surprises like a fire. It's pretty clear we want to know about fire engines, but there may be other stuff going on that if somebody was assigned to that they might talk about.
Well, I think John's also angle is that he's basically painting with a big brush. He wants to make sure all these commissions make sense. And also that the people that are appointed on them, that are the proper people, because often it's just every January 1st, like I'm on the Advisory Board of Health, I get a letter that just reminding me that I'm on it for another year. So, but I think they're looking at some of these, whether they're important enough to continue them or not.
So I might propose that we all look at, and maybe you can send this out so everybody has one sheet.
Yeah, because
Okay.
Krista sent it to all of us. It was
Yeah.
probably 3-4 weeks ago.
But there's one sheet, and maybe we can all come in with, picking like 2 or 3 or 4 committees that we might be interested in.
So is the proposal that we each join 1 or 2 or 3 of these commissions, or
No,
just follow?
watch them.
Just follow.
Watch them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because their commissions are entities unto themselves. If they wanted us, they would have asked.
That was what I was thinking.
Yeah, and Mackie is on the Advisory Board of Health, and that's one of those that are down there. But that way, and we'll have to do some work, well, how do I find out what they're doing and where and how and why? It's going to be a learning process, but once we get it, I think, and report when we have a meeting, if there's something relevant that needs to be stated about the commission or the agency or that we're looking at. And part of that is to get the RTM involved in a lot of stuff all around town. And that is our responsibility, but we've never done it as organized as this.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and the list is pretty incredible.
Great.
Yes, I think it'll foster greater connectivity across the town. I mean, I'm sure it's being scrubbed for redundancies too, but I think it's more about connecting the dots across the commissions and the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Motion to adjourn? Okay, all right.
Very good, David.
Okay, thank you.